This week on Capital Discourse, America on Edge. A viral shooting video from Minneapolis rocks the nation. The Pentagon prepares 1,500 troops. Civil liberties, public safety, and protest collide. What happens next? The Greenland Gambit. Europe's frustration grows as Greenland moves to the center of a global standoff. Is it strategy, resources, or something deeper fueling the tension? We'll break down the frosty drama and ask, is this about resources, strategy, or just a massive case of fear of missing out? Protest, repression, and the price of dissent Russia, China, Venezuela, and the US are playing. Who can out-repress whom? China's calling out US moves in Venezuela because irony is alive and well. BRICS flexes, alliances shift, and smaller nations brace for impact as the big players toss around power like it's a party favor. And what is the real cost for those caught in the middle? Spoiler, it's never just a game. All this and more, served with a wink, a side eye, and just enough snark to keep you awake. Welcome to Capital Discourse, where the headlines bite back.
Yo, what's good, America? For real, it's only the second week of January, and this year's already off the damn rails. Like, I thought we'd at least get a grace period before things started wilding out, but nah. 2026 just kicked the door in like, surprise, motherfuckers. We're not even in the ballpark anymore, fam. We're in the sketchy-ass parking lot, setting off car alarms, dodging shopping carts, and beefing with a seagull over a cold slice of pizza. The news is straight up feral. I mean, how are we supposed to keep up? It's like every headline woke up and chose chaos. So buckle up, because if this is how January's starting, I'm about to start prepping for the apocalypse with a Capri Sun and a pack of Gushers. Let's get into this mess. All right, Minnesota, you're front and center tonight, and not for reasons anybody wanted. The Pentagon's got 1,500 troops on standby for the president to declare the Insurrection Act like it's some game. Meanwhile, ICE is stepping up patrols while the city grows more tense, and the outrage is real. People are hurting. Let's not forget folks like Renee Nicole Good. Her name deserves to be said, right or wrong. This moment in history underscores the importance of de-escalation and appropriate training. Because behind every headline are real people, real families, and real pain. Let me be unmistakably elucidated. Violence against citizens by the military or ICE is never acceptable. That's not up for debate. We should be better than this period. If you're in Minnesota right now, please stay peaceful. Don't let anyone twist this moment into something uglier. We've all seen what happens when unrest spirals, and we don't need another insurrection or even the hint of one. As for our governmental leaders, throwing around words like that isn't just reckless, it's dangerous. This moment is not a political weapon or an excuse to turn cities into battlegrounds. This is a human moment. This is a moment where seasoned towns should come together and find solutions to work together. And by using rhetoric that divides us, you are only adding to the problems that we face. So let's all not lose sight of what matters: lives, justice, and keeping our communities safe. Stay smart, stay safe, and let's not let history repeat itself. And now for the international flavor. Trump's beefing with Europe over Greenland? Yes, Greenland. My guy. Are we trading Pokemon cards or running a country? The president has placed new tariffs directly as a result of the unwillingness of the Europeans to sell Greenland, and the EU's ready to clap back with $108 billion in tariffs because the markets are just going to love that. And somewhere in Berlin, a dude just rage quit his Bloomberg terminal. Seriously, who's writing this season? Feels like we're in the lost episodes of The Real World. Plus, Trump wants $1 billion for a board of peace in Gaza. The world's like, hard pass, fam. China's coming in hot over Venezuela. Iran's out here threatening mass executions, and Spain just had a train derailment. Chile's literally on fire, and the internet's still beefing about a grandma at a concert. Y'all, we are not okay. Somebody hit Control-Alt-Delete on 2026, I beg you. But if that all wasn't enough, this government has a shutdown looming over us like a bad group project. If Congress can't get their act together and agree on funding, so the whole country's about to get ghosted by its own government again. Like, seriously? We're about to see closed signs on national parks, federal workers sweating their next paycheck, and politicians pointing fingers like it's a damn TikTok challenge. Meanwhile, the rest of us are just stuck watching the world's most expensive reality show. Except nobody's getting voted off the island and we're all footing the bill. It's wild. This while regular folks are just trying to keep the lights on. Honestly, is this how grown-ups are supposed to run a country? Because if so, I want a refund and a new tutorial. At this point, the only thing getting funded is my stress level. So Congress, figure it out. Because the government shutdown episode is tired and none of us signed up for this rerun. But really though, the whole squad, bro the government, the internet, and your neighbor with the 12 "don't tread on me" flags is tripping. And just, maybe we all need to chill, grab a Capri Sun, and remember when the biggest drama was who stole your Dunkaroos at lunch, and if Ruben Studdard was going to win American Idol, or if it would be Clay Aiken. But nah, I guess we'll just keep wilding out. We will be back right after this messages with our panel.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to get started with our today's show. We're going to go over the top news stories that are happening around the world, from growing unrest in Iran to a budget showdown that is setting up here in the United States. Complete and total chaos, what seems to be inside of Minneapolis over the ICE protests and the killing of Erica Good. And also increased concern over what is actually going to go down inside of Venezuela. But we will start there in Venezuela. And joining me today is Richard. Welcome in,
Hey,
Richard.
What's going on?
Welcome in. Welcome in. Let's start in Venezuela. We've watched this unfold, which looked to be, honestly, overnight, and very quickly and quietly on the 3rd of January, just a couple of days into the new year, we wake up to news stories of we've captured Maduro and he's on his way back to the United States. And that broke somewhere around 3 o'clock in the morning. I got the news alerts in about 3 o'clock in the morning that we had captured Maduro and he was on his way back to the United States. Let's get your take on this, honestly, where you're at.
Realistically, the whole drug boat bombing for fentanyl, which doesn't come from that part of the world at all, was a farce. It was a way to get in, to surround this country, to do what they ultimately did, which, in my opinion, is totally illegal. They don't have Congress's approval to bombard these boats, whether they're carrying drugs or not. They don't have any approval from anyone other than the resident. And it's just, it doesn't make sense. All of it is based upon helping the United States stay alive through the drug scourge that is permeating in this country and killing hundreds of thousands of people. But it's not even about that. It's always been about getting at the oil for that orange guy. It's always been about getting at the oil. And now that he has the oil, guess what? Guess who's controlling the money that oil generates? He is.
Yeah,
Somewhere in the Middle East. I'm like, what? Like, where? Wow.
Yep.
So
And I think it's clear to state, and I'm going to back up a little bit too in a second here, but I think it's clear to state that he has stated that the main interest here in Venezuela is getting those oil refineries back online and controlling that flow of oil, which is the largest cash reserves oil flows in the world.
On the planet, yes.
and yeah, absolutely. And to I think everyone and most of the viewers, this came to us all as a shock, and we've all started to absorb the fact that we are now in a situation where we are in another foreign country, and we are not necessarily, the administration at least is not necessarily calling boots on the ground. We definitely have military assets nearby and engaged. We've got a blockade of Venezuela still currently. But I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to back up and just give a quick timeline. We had been giving these showdown orders even before the capturing of Maduro. We moved the fleet in. We created a blockade. We said you need to change the ways of the flow of fentanyl, and I think that's what was used to really kind of put the foot in the door. But now we're in a situation where he has decided that he's going to capture Maduro, which he did. He did that on January 3rd, when we all woke up and saw that he was on his way back to the United States. And then afterwards, after several press conferences on that morning of January 3rd and into January 4th, it was stated that we would be running the United States, as in we would be running that country, which would by and large be the president of the United States, Donald Trump, that would be actively making decisions for the people of Venezuela. And all of this was done so without the consultation of Congress. It was done so without letting the Gang of Eight know. It was done so without the approval of Congress. And I'm going to be kind of frank too, it doesn't necessarily require the full approval of Congress immediately. When a police action is taken, if it plans to go over 30 days, it does require the approval of Congress. But in an action against a foreign nation, it is required that the Gang of Eight knows that this is happening, and that did not happen. And it was stated by them during that time frame that they did not know prior to him going in, and it was stated by the president that they did not know going in, that they told no one. And I think that sets up a constitutional showdown between the Congress and the president and the courts even. And this is one of many constitutional showdowns that are in line. But I think right now, inside of Venezuela, the biggest concern is where is the oil going? Who is getting that proceeds, and where are those proceeds going to? This is under U.S. jurisdiction. It's under U.S. law, but it's not in the U.S. jurisdictional area. So it's not in the U.S. jurisdictional area. It is comparable to U.S. law and international law. Where lies, especially in the sale of the oil, I think is the biggest question. Where is the sale of this oil going? I'm not certain, and it's not really going to be too clear, and I don't think that they're intending on making it too clear whom they're selling it to, for how much they're selling it for, and then where's the proceeds, and how much of the proceeds are going to Venezuela, how much of the proceeds are going to the United States, and how much are going to the private companies that are invested inside of this. And I think that overall is going to be the biggest thing that we really need to look at as a whole in the next coming weeks. But Richard, do you have any other thoughts?
By the way, so he did tell someone. He didn't tell Congress, right? The Gang of Eight, and he didn't alert anyone and seek further, guidance on it, right? But he did say he told the oil companies. He did tell the oil companies before he did all of this. Isn't that something?
And I do believe that there were some knowledge of some folks going in. I'm not certain if they told him as he was going in to capture Maduro, but the thought process of taking over the country, I do know that after Maduro had been captured, that was stated to the oil companies before the American people, before the Congress knew that was the plan after Maduro was captured. And so that in itself also brings another question of, whom and where in the line of notification do we need to expect, and where do we expect notification going further, and any other actions that may need to be taken against either Venezuela or Iran or any other country at this point. And that's really kind of the question that I have as a journalist. I have as an American citizen is just really kind of figuring out where this goes next, what this looks like not only in Venezuela but also abroad in other countries as things ramp up. Is this going to be the standard approach here? Do we go in and depose the sitting leader because we don't agree with what they say and how they do things? Do we go in and do we take over their economic resources because we don't agree with where they're going to? And that's really kind of one of the things that I think that a lot of people are asking at this point because of this. We've renamed the Secretary of Defense to the Secretary of War. We've renamed the Defense Department to the War Department. That has still not received congressional approval, so it is still legally called the Defense Department. But by and large, the documents that are coming out of them come out as the Secretary of War and the War Department. But legally, it is still called the Defense Department. That being said, the approach and the mindset of the Defense Department is that of a war footing. And so where is the overall approach, and where do we go next is the next question that I ask. The next question I really would like to see the answer for is, is this peace through strength meant to dominate the world, or where are we going? And these are the questions that are being asked. I don't know. Where are your thoughts on this, Richard?
Well, I think that, so in looking at the whole picture, right, we have the resident open arms, red carpet treatment for Putin, right? A sworn enemy of the United States of America, when we will call that, right? So it's like, so you're celebrating his coming over, no less, to Alaska. So it begins there. Like, what are you guys talking about? And all of this, nothing transpired. I don't want to go into the Ukraine war, but nothing transpired as a result of that show, right? And so I wonder sometimes, what do they actually talk about?
Yeah, and that's a good question to ask too. Is what in those discussions that were being held in December when he met with Putin in Alaska, what was discussed and what truly was on the table. And I do know, and that kind of brings us into the next topic here, is talking about BRICS and talking about the economic inroads that the BRICS nations are making into the United States as well as to the other NATO countries. Is really kind of looking at what is being discussed on the table and why are we making these moves now. And as an objective individual, I will sit back and I will say, listen, there is a very good possible reason that we may not know something that we may be having to be protecting ourselves from, and so there could be a very good reason why this is happening. That being said, so much is happening that it is hard for me to buy. It is hard for me to believe that this is a thing that is normal, that this is a thing that is, what we are protecting ourselves from. It is hard for me to believe those facts as to be true. because the amount of things that we're doing just seem very questionable and authoritarian like. But within the BRICS nations, they have kind of centralized their monetary units into one strong currency, which is making inroads against the dollar. It's making inroads against the euro. And it is becoming quite strong out there. And these BRIC nations are, China, they are Russia, and there's several others that are in play. North Korea, it's also involved. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to build up this currency that is able to be established on the market that does not have to go through U.S. banks. See, up until this point, and one of the things to really truly understand about this, up until this point, all financial transactions were going through the United States. And so we had the ability to freeze money. We didn't like what you were doing. We froze your money. We froze your assets. And that's why it was so powerful. We saw that back when Barack Obama was president. We saw that when Joe Biden was president. And we've gone back as far as even as George W. Bush. And H.W. Bush even, where assets were frozen to control the individuals or nations that were making inroads against other nations, or also their own citizens, to let them know, to knock it off, and so you hurt them in the wallet. But right now, by BRICS establishing itself, they're saying that we're not going to hit the U.S. banks. We're not going to hit the U.S. monetary fund. We're going to go around it. And so therefore, you can't hurt us. And this is gaining some strength, and it's concerning both to the United States, but also to our foreign allies abroad as well. And we really haven't gotten so much of an answer on how we're dealing with that. The discussion really has not hit a fever pitch yet either. And I believe that because of all of the other things that are going on as well, we can't have the serious discussion in the room about the economic issues that are without really and truly having all of these other pieces going on as well, without having to talk about what's going on in Minneapolis, what's going on in Venezuela. We really kind of need those things to kind of wade through, because we even ourselves, and it has been stated on multiple other news outlets on this past Sunday morning, where they just didn't know where to start. And we're kind of in that same boat where we're trying to figure out where you talk about what's going on, what's next, and then how you discuss it. But Richard, if you want to put your 2 cents in on that, especially about the BRICS nations and how currencies are now starting to subvert that infrastructure of the United States banking system, and how they're getting around that. If you've got anything you want to add into there.
I'm not too familiar with that content, but everything is just crazy. Really quick. I want to get back to what I was trying to say about Venezuela. He went in there with because this guy is a big drug guy, blah 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 blah, right? And so that was the purpose of getting him back to the USA, to try him and in the courts so he can stop killing people, right? That's those are the words, right? But then you have this Honduran president who he pardoned, who was convicted already by the courts here in the USA, right? And he had imported with evidence, I'm sure the government had evidence, right? Indisputable evidence in order to convict him, in any case. So he was a really big 400 tons of cocaine or whatever, and so how do you make sense of that? How do we as a people make sense of that when we have the resident making these? It's a show, man. It's a poor show. It's a very poor show, because how do you make sense of that? You're saying that you care for us that much, that you want to end the scourge of drugs in the USA, but yet you pardon the biggest guy ever convicted of transporting cocaine into this country. You let him
agree with you on that. I agree with you, and I think we'll spend a little bit of time too on these questionable pardons, because I think these questionable pardons are not just
Another
within
angle.
the foreign, but they're also in the domestic as well. We'll spend some time there, but moving so that we can kind of. There's so much. There's so
Yeah.
much that's happened. It's only the 18th. It's like we're only 2 weeks into this thing. Like we're only 2 weeks into January.
Indeed.
And I think that the bingo cards are already been thrown out the window. We've got to get some new bingo cards here because the odd has just gotten odder and the strange has just gotten stranger. And here we go because we're going in like Jonah and the whale. But it's never a problem, right? But that's what they always say, right? It's going to be great. It's going to be fine. It's going to be beautiful. America's going to be back. But in reality, I have yet to see that.
I like that. I like that word, that differentiating falsehood with, and reality, because
Absolutely.
most of us live in a reality, induced world, right? It's real what we're seeing, but it's like to him and to the administration, what you're seeing is not true. And I love the way this one described it in his first term. It's alternate reality. So there's an alternative to the real reality.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think that there is an alternative that's being spun, and we're seeing that within the administration, and definitely in their press releases and the way that they're handling with the journalists that are inside of the White House as well. They're really kind of in a moment of making their own news and making it the way that they see that it should be reported, and not where it is now. But as we stand at this point, we're inside of Venezuela. We've got the BRICS nations moving against us, but then we're also moving on to Greenland. And it's also another concern. Is while we're dealing with this Greenland thing, while we're inside of Venezuela, and we've got assets that are just surrounding Venezuela right now, full total blockade. We're talking about how Greenland needs to be the 51st state, and that the president does not believe in the fact that he wants to just place some bases in the country, which the Denmark government, the monarchy there, as well as the leaders of Denmark, have all stated that we're open to you placing more strategic bases inside of Denmark and protecting Denmark that way. But Denmark is ours, and Denmark has been a part of the Danish rule since the 1200s, and in the early fjords. So quite honestly, Denmark is unquestionable. Not a single question in the world that Denmark has laid a claim to Greenland. And so for us to go in and say that this is ours now is it's absolutely absurd. And I think that the Republicans are having a hard time selling this, and they've had a hard time in the last Sunday on the Sunday morning spins to even try to sit there and spell it. So honestly, this is one of those things where we're looking at, what do you do? Where do you go next? And quite honestly, I don't know. I don't know what happens with this Greenland approach here. It's concerning to me. I think it's concerning to the rest of the world. NATO is moving troops in from the UK. They're moving troops in from France. They're moving troops in from a lot of the other NATO countries to fortify Greenland in the event that the U.S. militarily decides that they're going to take it. And I don't think that was on anybody's bingo card at all in 2026. And quite honestly, it's a lot. It's a whole lot. It's a lot to deal with. And quite frankly, I'm concerned. I am worried that's a thing. I don't know where you're at, Richard, but I am definitely at a point where, watching how this is unfolding with Greenland is concerning.
Absolutely. So I think that, getting back to what I was trying to say, all this pomp and circumstance and red carpets for Putin and stuff, right? And I wonder what they were talking about. And Putin's biggest wish is that NATO would be destroyed, right? Because we pose a threat, right, to him and to whatever he wants to do, I would imagine. And we're strong together. We've proven that, right? So the resident knowing that by taking over or even coming up with this nonsense that he wants to now invade that country as well, aside from Cuba and all the other countries that he's spoken about, but it's a NATO country, and he will totally destroy NATO and what has become the biggest alliance, the best alliance the world has ever known.
And yeah, I agree with you on that. NATO is a massively important alliance. It's extremely important to the world and global stability. And to just throw that out the window is concerning to me, worrisome, and frightening.
Sure.
That all being said, we've seen this president now threaten Cuba, as you've stated. We've seen him tell Cuba that they need to get their stuff together or we're coming in. He's said this to Mexico now.
Insane.
And one of the more concerning things, I believe, and a lot of people have made kind of poked some fun at, is that he has also told Puerto Rico that they also need to kind of get their stuff together, even though he is kind of the leader of Puerto Rico. So I'm kind of confused on that one. But hey, we're here for it, right?
Going to Colombia, so this is world domination, right? Just what the dictators do. Don't they do the same crap? Don't they run the same news cycle, man? Don't they? We want that, we're going to take it by force, freak it. So this guy has grown an extra nut. He didn't have any, but now he's got one, right? And now, because he took Venezuela by force, the leader and the country, right? So now he thinks with impunity he can go into any country and do the same. Because listen to what he says, and listen to what he says carefully. He says, because America has the greatest military on the planet, led by somebody who doesn't know up from down, who's renamed it into a video game, Department of War, whatever the hell he calls it. And it's like, what is going on here, man?
I agree with you.
I think I'm going to make this little prediction, right? And don't get mad at me, no one, for saying this, but I think we're setting ourselves up to be invaded by Russia and China. They're just going to come in and say, these guys are so weak, let's go in there and pound them the new ass.
I think that we're setting the stage for a large global conflict. That I agree with. I think that where we stand as Russia stands, I don't think that Russia has the ability to do that at this point. And I think that it shows that with their fight with Ukraine, the Russia that did exist before would have been able to take out Ukraine pretty quickly, and without any care. The Russia that we're seeing now has taken some pretty heavy losses, and it is slow to move forward. And I know that there are a lot of economic constraints that we have placed upon them, and there's a lot of diplomatic things that are going on in the background. But I do not believe that where we stand at this point, that we're at that point where Russia is gonna be able to kind of come in and take on a country like the United States. But don't touch that dial, because 2026 has been crazy. But I would say that where we're at is we're in a new territory of war. We're seeing more and more global infrastructure attacks inside of the cyberspace than we are inside of physical spaces, and I think that we're going to see an uptick in those. That threat is becoming real, and so I want that to kind of be known, that's where we are. However, that all being said, we've got a lot of things that are going on at home as well. With everything that's going on between Venezuela, between Greenland, NATO, BRICS. We've got a ton of things that are going on at home as well. This president has promised that his immigration stance is going to be tough as of day one. And when we were ensured that what we thought was tough was going to be even tougher than what it is. And so we've seen that so far. And I honestly, at this point, I can say that, this president is, if his approach is to deport everything that is not legal, then, he has really kind of gone no and hit that target there, and he is going forward. But I think that the way that this is going out, and the way that this is going down, the way that ICE is handling their business inside of this country is frightening. I think that it is morally questionable. I believe that the way that things are happening are very concerning to not only our own people who live here, our citizens, us living here, but I think globally, people are looking at us and saying, what happened to America? What happened to the land of the free? It is no longer the land of the free. It's the land of who has the most money. And that in itself should be really honestly concerning. But the things that we have seen between the protests and the way that ICE have handled themselves is just frightening. We're in a situation right now where we saw Erica Good, who was shot by ICE. She was shot while driving her vehicle, and it was stated that that she hit somebody, she hit an agent with the vehicle, and I know that everybody in America has seen the videos of this, and I know everybody in America is going to have their own take on that, and I can tell you I have my own as well. You can say that where are you going to find anybody to charge this agent against with a crime? Absolutely not. The agent was within the justification by all stance of the law to draw his weapon and fire his weapon. But was he in the moral stance able to do that? And I think that is something that really needs to be looked at, is morally, should he have? You look at two things when you're going to actionably use force. One is, do I need to use this force? And two, am I going to die the second? And we all know at this point where he drew the weapon that the car was moving away from him, and he had moved out of the way. And he put 3 rounds into that vehicle. And those 3 rounds struck her in the upper torso in multiple places and once in the head. And so the question then really comes to is, morally, should he and did he need to do that? And it's hard to second guess a person on the ground as somebody who has experience and training and understanding of all of the things being on the ground. I don't want to make a habit of questioning these guys when they're out in the field, because that's not good in general, because there will be a situation where it was called upon, and then these guys will be unable to do their job successfully. However, I will say this. I think that what we are doing, and this falls on the federal government and not on these agents, is that they're putting them into situations where they cannot handle. They are not trained or equipped to handle these situations. If you're giving somebody who has primarily, and to be clear, ICE's job primarily beforehand was an escort, not in an apprehension. They were in an escort mode. The marshals, FBI, whomever went out and they made the apprehension. These guys went through enormous amounts of training to deal with what situation they were going in. And ICE was in the escort business. They were taking and they were deporting, and that's how this worked. And now we're putting them into a situation where they are now needing to apprehend. And we're giving them, and from the report from Homeland Security, 47 days of training. They're getting 47 days of training. And to be clear, to give you the understanding, the separation here of this 47 days, which is a month and a half. They're getting a month and a half, 30 days plus another 2 weeks. That's what they're getting. Where it is when you go into the military, you're getting 6 to 9 months at times, depending on what your specialty is. You're off to basic training, and you are there for an extended amount of time. Then you're off to your specialty school, and then sometimes you're off to another school right after that. Police academies, they're going away for almost upwards of 6 months to deal with the public and understand the law in which they are working within. We're putting these guys on the street in 47 days. And I think that is the question that really should be asked. And if no one's asking this question, is why are we putting these guys on the ground in 47 days? Why are they on the ground in 47 days? It's one of those things where no one's asked this question, and I'm surprised that no one's asked this question. 47 days is not enough time to teach somebody how to act in a public setting where it's already contentious. You're already in a very tense spot. You're expecting them in 47 days to not only be able to navigate tense waters, but also do the apprehension. That at times, some of these apprehensions can be dangerous. And no one's not saying that these aren't possibly at times dangerous apprehensions. There are some bad dudes that they're pulling off the street. But we're not training them. And so we're expecting them to be successful. You expect somebody to be successful in a situation when you're giving them 47 days of training. How do you expect them to handle the stresses of that? You know, and understand the laws in which they are. You're not. And that's the thing, because we're going and we're employing people off the street. We're saying, hey, go ahead and kick the door down and take whoever you want. Go ahead and kick the door down and take whatever you want. You know, do whatever you want. And that's where we're at right now. And that should be 100% clear to everyone, is that we're doing what the hell we want to do and how the hell we want to do it. And you should just sit down and shut up. You should sit down and take it. You know, and that is not something that should be. That's not how you police. That's not how you govern. That's not how you do anything, especially in a country like the United States. But that all being said, you know, Richard, I know that you've got a strong opinions going on about how ICE is handling things and where things are. So if you want to give me your thoughts as well inside of this.
I truly believe that there's an additional agenda to what is going on. Certainly, you know, the immigration thing, you know, going after the big, the bad, the ugly, the rapists, the drug addicts, the murderers, people who chop other people up. I get that, right? And that was applauded by most people because that's what was told was going to happen. They're implanted in there. The 47 days, by the way, is real quick because they want to get people out there with guns. Okay, they want to get people out there with guns and not even a federal badge with no number and no name, and these guys are masked. You don't know who they are. So all of this reeks to high heaven of.
So I mean, it reeks to high heaven. I mean, the 47 days is very, very purposeful too.
Well,
he's the 42nd president of the United States of America,
right?
Like
but think about it. As you were mentioning it, 30 days and 17 days, like that's how fast they get. But and then look at the network that they're involved in with recruiting these people and the bonuses they're giving. By the way, these people were given $130-something billion. And
they were given more money recently as well.
And they were given more money, I'm sure, by the billionaire donors that we know nothing about, right? Because this is all a plan. This is all a plan to really do this country. And I believe it because it's happening right before our eyes.
And quite honestly, I'm not quite sure if the intent is really to do the country in as much as it is to roll the country back into a time where segregation was king, where race played a huge role, and it's hard not to say the loud part at this point. The very loud part, very quietly. So I'm going to call it out for what it is. This is blatant racism. This is blatant. and
Absolutely.
targeted racism
Absolutely.
against brown individuals in this country.
Absolutely.
But it is also becoming targeted racism against black and brown. It's becoming targeted against all folks of all minorities. And so now you've got hordes of children who are afraid to leave their homes. You've got families who can't get to grocery stores because they're afraid what's going to happen when they step outside the door. And that's not how anybody should ever have to live. And the response is, well, just deport yourself. Sure. Except that's not how this goes, right? You know, if it were just deporting these guys and they were going back home to their home, then sure. They're not just deporting these guys. They're not. They're spending 6, 7, upwards almost a year in a detention cell. They're sitting in prison. And they're waiting to be deported. So it's not just deport yourself. It's not just get on a plane and go back. This is where you're making them sit. For how long are you making them sit there? And quite honestly, it's because we've profitized. We've turned prisons into profit. There are for-profit prisons. We've got for-profit detention centers. Everybody's making money off of this situation right now. And it's gross. It's wrong. And it shouldn't be a thing. But that is where we are. That's what's happening. And, you know, and I could crash out for hours on this. And I know that you could too as well, Richard. You know, we can sit here and we can talk about the systemic racism that comes from this. And that is systemic racism. It's systemic racism because you don't look the same as me. You are not the same as me. So I'm going to, you know, preclude you from X, Y, and Z, and or tell you to get out, you know. So we're kicking people out. We're sending them back to places where they don't even belong. They don't even have a home or any residence whatsoever. They're not from there. They had nothing to do with the country. But we're putting them there. We're sending you know, folks that are from Venezuela to Kenya and places in Africa, which Kilmar Grego or Garcia is one of the guys as well. They're trying to send him to Uganda, I think, which is crazy because dude's not even from anywhere near these regions, you know. But you know, they're trying to pick a place and then drop people off. You know, and I think the biggest toll here too, and I know you'll agree with me on this one, Richard, is the kids. You know, because what's happening now is that these kids are sitting in cells, but when they're going to these immigration hearings, they're going without their parents. Their parents can't go with them, and so there will be 5 and 6 little children. You know, little children, 5 and 6 year olds, 8-year-olds, sitting in a courtroom. And
how can that make any kind of sense whatsoever?
And it doesn't make sense at all. But this is what's happening. They're sitting in courtrooms, and they're represented by one guardian ad litem. And they're asking 5-year-olds, you know, do you understand where you are? They're sitting there coloring. But you know, they are being asked, do you understand where the hell you are? And how the hell can you ask a 5-year-old, do you understand where the hell you are? Like, how are you gonna? But that's what we're doing. We've got 5-year-olds locked up, and in immigration hearings by themselves without parents. And so then the administration turns around and says, well, if their parents would have just left, it wouldn't be a problem. Well, if they'd have done this, that, and the other thing, it wouldn't have been a problem. How about if we just, you know, if we're going to deport somebody, deport them? I don't understand. And so like, and I don't think that, you know, we need to be doing any of this to the level of where we are. But if we are, what's wrong with just opening the door and pushing them back to the other side? You know, what's wrong with putting them on a plane and sending them back? At least this way, we know that these little children are going somewhere where somebody is going to care about them.
Somebody knows.
We certainly aren't.
Where somebody knows them, where they're known.
I mean, because we're certainly not. We're doing none of that. They're sitting in a cell in their formative years. Get the hell out of here.
And that's if they're ever even found, because a lot of the people that are being apprehended or being placed, you know, they're disappearing people. You've heard that term, and it's true. People are
Yeah.
just getting picked up, and nobody knows where they are till
Flipping
several
them off
months
the
later.
street.
They reappear. They let them go, whatever, and it's like, what? Like,
Mhm.
really? American
And
citizens
we
have gone.
work in the field, broadcasting field, and we have several facets of where we work in this broadcasting field. And I know that there have been a few people. A show that I was on, who has been just picked up directly after the show, and taken to a detention center, and no one knew. No one knew for over 48 hours that he had been taken. And then, we struggle to get any information. And I know that his family struggles to get the information they need, at least in the very early days. And this is what's happening. And we're taking these people and we're putting them on planes and we're sending them across the country. Put them on a plane and send them across the country away from anything and everything that can possibly represent them. We're doing it on purpose. Don't get it twisted. We're doing this on purpose so that they can't get representation. They don't want these guys represented. They want these guys to be alone. They want them separated. And that's why this is happening. And it's disgusting, and it should be noted. It should be noted. And again, they're going to target whomever they're going to choose to target. They're going to come after whomever they're going to choose to come after, because that's what they're going to do. And it's depressing. It's sad. It's depressing. And in the world that we live in right now, this is not something that should be a thing that's happening in this country. It's 2026, guys. It's 2026, and we're fighting over the stupidest things. And that kind of takes me into the next piece here. Is we're fighting over the stupidest things. We're fighting over DEI. They want to cancel Martin Luther King Day, which is on Monday, coming up here today, guys. So Martin Luther King Day, it's a thing, but they want to cancel it. Why do they want to cancel it? Because it's DEI. They feel as though as it should be, but they want to have a Charlie Kirk Day. And quite honestly, and I'm going to say the part out loud now, is we can't be doing this. We can't go around and choose the white guy over the black guy. That's what we're doing. We can't choose the minority just because you feel as though this one person didn't do everything perfectly in their life. You're doing it because it's a racially driven thing. We're picking fights with those that are in this realm, that are trying to make effective change, that are trying to be a part of the conversation. We're kicking them out of the conversation. We're picking fights with those minorities whom are just simply because they're gay, simply because they're trans. And so we're kicking them out of the conversation because we don't feel as though they are a part of the conversation. And it's not okay. It's not okay. They're a part of the conversation. They're a part of the world, no matter where you agree or disagree. You don't get to make the choice. I don't get to make the choice. No one gets to make the choice what these guys do and don't are part of just because you don't like the way that they live. That's just not how this works. And let me be clear on this, because we go, well, then we're talking about the men that are trans in women's sports are using the bathrooms. You know what? Sports in themselves are this archaic thing that we continue to do to compete against each other, to bash our heads over top of our things and beat our chest loudly. That's just what we do, and so we want to create an even playing field for the women. We want to create an even playing field for the men. We don't want men in women's bathrooms. You know what? It's 2026. It's 2026. I don't want to share the bathroom with anybody. I don't know if anybody, I'm pretty sure, Richard, but you could probably agree with this. So I don't want to share the bathroom with anybody. I go anywhere. I try to avoid going to the bathroom where there are other people I know they're going to be in the bathroom. I don't want to share the bathroom with anybody. 2026, just build some stalls that are single use. Like, that solves half that problem. That problem right there. Single-use stalls. We're already standing in a line outside the bathroom. So, oh my God, you got to stand in a line. You're standing in a line in the bathroom, and you got to watch another guy pee. I mean, really. I don't want to go to the bathroom and hear a guy pooping next to me. I mean, let's call it out for what it is. Let's call it out for what it is. Like you want us worried about who's in the bathroom stall next to you. I don't want to hear Frank, who's 60 years old, struggle to pee. I don't. I just want to go to the bathroom. I want to close the door behind me, and I want to lock it. That's what I want to do. I want to lock the door behind me.
And take care of my business, right? That's it.
Take care of my business and be done. Like,
and get the hell out.
Like, I mean, why can't we just pick the easy response? Why don't we just build a bathroom facilities that just have doors and just call it good? It could be male or female, because guess what? A toilet's still a toilet, right? Like it still gets used the same damn way. It's single person, one person in there. So like, come on. You know, you got to, because now you got malls that are building these family rooms already. You got convention centers that have got tons and tons of family rooms. If you just, I don't know, took the bathroom space you already had and turned them into single stalls, put a door on them, maybe life would be a lot easier for the rest of the whole world. I don't know. I mean, it's 2026. I feel like that's a simple solution. Build a bathroom. I feel like this is an argument that could go away real quick. I mean, we hear the argument in the schools, and we've got two newly elected Democrats, one in New Jersey and one in Virginia. And this is actually a central issue in Virginia. This is a major issue, especially in Northern Virginia, where they were looking at, what do you do about the transgender folks that are trying to acclimate within the society? One of the biggest contentious debates are the bathrooms. What are they doing with the bathrooms? I think that's a very easy fix. Teachers don't share the bathrooms. I assure you, I can tell you for certain, they're not going into bathroom stalls. They're going into the teacher's room, and they're using the bathroom. They're locking the door behind them, and then they're exiting that bathroom. And they're not sharing with the science guy, and they're not sharing with the math teacher. And they're not hearing each other go to the bathroom next to each other. And the amount of children in any school, and the amount of numbers that we have in the schools, at no point is there going to be a rush on the bathroom. Build 5 bathrooms per wing. You could rip those walls out pretty easily. And if you're struggling in a small township to do that, I guarantee you there are enough guys named Tim Bob that can come and make that happen for you. There are enough guys named Randy that could show up and then, reroute that plumbing, and it would be good to go, and you wouldn't have a problem for 50 years. But again, we and this is kind of symptomatic to everything that's going on with immigration. This is what's going on with, with the fight in Venezuela, the issues abroad, is that we do not consistently choose the easy way. We, for some reason, in the last 10 years have decided that we're going to choose the hardest way possible to get to the easiest possible solution that is in front of us. We could have had an easy route, but we keep choosing the hard way. And I know that that's part of the American way, the American spirit of like, let's choose the hard way because we're Americans and we're tough and we're grit. But sometimes, and I'm pretty sure the founding fathers would say this too, is like, man, just keep this shit simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Like, really, like, why are we making this hard? We got 99 problems. You got 99 problems. Can we not make stupidity one? I mean, really, it's just what it is, and that's kind of where I'm at. Richard, I don't know where are you at, because I just went on a tangent there, but like legit,
I say 99 problems, and the bathroom ain't one.
I mean, really, like, I mean, and this is really
what are you going to go in there?
Debated about
Socialize or to take care of business and get the hell out?
They literally debated about this. It was contentious. I swear to God, I saw like, I don't know, 40 different ads about the bathrooms in Virginia, the Virginia race. And it drove me nuts. It was on the local news here, which it's hard to permeate the local news, seeing as though we live outside of DC. And it's the local news is the national news, but it's somehow it permeated over top of the national news to become the local news, and yet still we have yet to continue to fight over this stupid thing that is the easiest solution on the face of the earth. Just build single stalls, like you just build a bathroom, bro. Just put a door on it.
One of my favorite sayings, Dakota, is where you have people, you have problems. Because we all come from different angles, with different angles, different everything, and we mix all that stuff in and we have problems. You know, we just have to learn how to get along, right? But that's part of the problem. Some people don't want to learn that part. They want to skip over that education. They don't want to learn how to get along because, you know, that's not necessary for them and their world.
Oh, yeah.
But the world in general, we all have to get along because we're all here, whether we like that or not. You know, we're all here.
Well, absolutely, you know? I agree with you 100%. And it's just one of those things where, you know, we kind of live in this world, and you know, and we're sitting here and we're like, what the hell's going on? And you know, we could spend a large amount of time talking for hours and hours and hours. We could spend the next several, you know, hours sitting here talking about all of the different things, all of the things that are just like mind-boggling to me and to everyone else at themselves, you know, where people just want to live in a world that does, you know. But hey, this is where we are. But one of the things that I do call upon everybody is to remember that we're all humans. And, you know, do upon others as you would want to be.
That's it.
You know, as we move forward here, you know, we're reminded of one of the most important things is that, you know, this is the time of reporting for the federal government. This is the time where they have to bring their case of why they're doing the things that they've done over the last year to us. And this episode and the next several episodes will be about that. And it's why this episode is titled He Shall from Time to Time. And that is a very purposeful picking of words on my end, why this is named this way. Because that is a part of the statute that is written in the reporting by the President of the United States. He shall from time to time report to the Congress and give the State of the Union. That is important that is brought to our overall approach to everyone. And I want everybody to really think of that as where were we a year ago and where are we now? I don't think that where we stood a year ago, we were in a horrible space. You know, were things perfect? No. Were things in a where we all wanted it to be? Were things cheap? No. I do believe where we're standing now is a much more disasterly look, a much more hazardous time. And I want everybody to really wrap that into their minds. You know, we're in a point now where my concern, my worry is what the next year brings. We have midterm elections this year, and we're going to have multiple hosts come into the space in the next several weeks, and we will talk about the importance of the local government, the local election, the midterm elections, and where the importance is for Americans to participate in the process. Because if you do not participate in the process, if you are uninvolved with this process, if you are not physically there to vote, you are not a part of being there. You're not going to be a part of the solution. You're part of the problem. But the problem is that when we're saying that you're a part of the problem, we're saying get out of the way. And all I'm saying is be a part of the conversation. Be a part of it. You are not a problem. The part of the problem is not being involved. And you must be involved. You must be a part of this conversation. And as we bring our guests in the next several weeks here, as we go forward in our reporting and our preparation for the State of the Union that comes up in February, as we start to move into the election cycle, we will have more intense talks, more intense discussions about the things that are that we are facing in the world. We are facing, increasing immigration raids, and we're facing foreign wars in multiple different lands. We barely even talked about Iran today. We barely talked about how, democracy there is wanting to bud so much, and the people don't want them to have it. That, if we weren't so busy doing other things, that we could be over there helping support that. But we're too busy worried about Greenland. We're too busy worried about Venezuelan oil to even assess what truly is going on over in Iran, what is truly going on in the Middle East, and where the areas where our boots should be near and dear and approached with, dealing with Gaza, dealing with the famine, dealing with famines across the world, not just in Gaza though. Dealing with helping and fostering a rebirth across the lands. This is the things and that I question. I question why, if we are so concerned with making sure that our ideals are in the places in which they should be, why are we not a part of that conversation? Why are we removing ourselves from that conversation? So with that all being said, we'll have multiple episodes this week. You guys will see us multiple times this week, but in the next several weeks here, you're going to see a lot of our upcoming guests, some from the Democratic Party, some from the Republican Party, and they will all be a part of the conversation. And we will have some spirited conversations, and we will have some good conversations. And hopefully, if we do this right, we'll get in some good trouble. With all that being said, our time has come to an end here for this episode. And so with that, remember, just be a part of the conversation, be a part of the process, be a part of what we move to as next. I wish everyone well, and we will see you on the next episode.